You're a coach and you just received your brand new BIOROWER or multiple BIOROWERs. And the question is, what do you do now with it? How do you work best with your team? What I do, you might want to do this differently, but what I do is I ask rowers to give me a couple strokes and I can see what their handwriting is. Before you do this, make sure the setup is about as they would have it in a boat. So this BIOROWER Pro is set up for sculling. Of course, you can set it up for sweep rowing too. And we have a 159.6 centimeter spread, so roughly 160 centimeter, which is pretty much sculling average. And we have inboards of 87 centimeters. You can adjust the inboards, you can adjust the length of your inner oar handle, you can adjust the spread as well, and of course the oar lock height. And then make sure the foot stretchers are set up for the athlete so the athlete feels comfortable. If you're a coach, you probably know this. So finish position. I like to be this way. Some people like to have more space, some people like to have less space. And then you let them do a couple of strokes. The way I personally set up my screen is for heart rate at the top and power on the right. These two top values are configurable, so you can select what you want to see. Say you want to see something instead of heart rate. There's a whole list of things to choose from. I personally like to row with heart rate. If your athletes don't row with heart rate, you could go for stroke rate. That's my second preferred option. And this will transfer into the other screens, so the balance mode and the signal mode. So I'll let them start out with rowers mode so to get a vague idea of how long their strokes are. So I'm rowing in my best workout clothes as usual. I'm around 110 degrees, so the orange values, A, G, L, and R, are 107 and 110 degrees. Don't expect athletes to be perfectly symmetrical because almost nobody is. It takes time. You have to see the BIOROWER like a boat you're not used to, and it takes a bit of time to get used to the fine nuances of the boat. And there are a couple of things where the BIOROWER is simply more precise than the boat will ever be. For example, let me go into signals mode, and you can see the difference, what I'm trying to explain. In order to understand what this actually means, let me explain a couple of things. It's super simple. The bottom axis, so going from 0 to 5 seconds, that's the timeline. It's simply the seconds going in sequence. It's the time you need for a stroke. And then you have two sets of curves. The top curves, which hover around what you see as 0 on the right. This would be my handle position. That's easy to understand. That's 0 degrees. We always consider the middle to be 0 degrees. If you go into the finish, you see the red curve now goes up, red because it's right, like in a boat, and green now goes up because green is left, starboard, like in a boat. And you see that I'm somewhere around 30 degrees now. You see this on the indicator on the right side. Now I'm going back towards 0. And the same thing happens at the catch. Now I'm at roughly 70 degrees, 65, 70 degrees. There are more precise ways to see this, but for now, this gives me all the information that I would need as a coach. So essentially, over the time, I see, where are my oar handles? Now they are at 70 degrees before 0. Now they are 30 degrees past 0. So essentially shows me how my oar handles move on a timeline. And then you probably already saw this at the bottom. There's a force curve. The force curve is measured in a very simple way. Here's a strain gauge and here's a strain gauge. And this is real-time data. There is no interpretation of data or calculation or approximation or algorithms. It's just data. I pull, I get data. I pull, I get data. There's not much room for interpretation. This has a 99% accuracy rating, so the data you read out is accurate. It's used for scientific research, so what more can you possibly need? And the idea is that over the course of a time, here, you pull, and you pull force. And the interesting thing for me is to correlate these two curves. But let's not go too deep into details for now. I usually focus more on the force curves than the handle curves, especially at the beginning. So let's just ditch the top curve and just look at the bottom curve. And now there are various ways people row. And I wanted to explain one specific detail where the BIOROWER is more precise than any boat will ever be. And it's because of the way the BIOROWER is built. We have one central unit of resistance. It's the triple resistance mechanism. It's air, a magnetic brake, and inertia brake. That means the entire unit is very heavy, continues to move. It's just like the boat floating through the water. We use air resistance for the middle body of the drive, and we use magnetic brake, which is adjustable to fine-tune the catch and the slow down speed with which the airframe slows down. So inertial brake and magnetic brake work hand in hand and also against each other. So this makes you feel like this is actually very much like the boat. It took us 20 years to figure that out. And now, when you, for example, start to pull with your right hand, your left hand will go empty. If you don't time this very well, so let's say your right hand always kind of pulls ahead of your left hand, like most experienced scullers do because they don't want to scratch their knuckles. Then in the boat would swivel. The BIOROWER doesn't swivel. There are two completely independent oar handles. They don't need each other. They move completely independently, vertically as well as horizontally. But there's one central source of resistance, just like in a boat, there's one water. So in the boat, if you catch with the right hand ahead of the left one, the boat's going to go sideways. Most scullers then overpull a bit here with the left hand at the finish. So the curve would be right starts ahead and left catches up. You see this force curve? It's an extreme example, but you get my idea. And if rowers feel this, and they pull with the right ahead of the left, they say, I don't know, the left side doesn't really give me the same amount of resistance. It's somehow empty. Yeah, it's because you don't have a good timing. And in the boat, you never feel this. You just go sideways and wonder why. And on the BIOROWER, you do feel this quite well. So how do you convince people that their technique might not be 1000% perfect as a coach, but is actually something they could change? And one of the tricks that I use is to get people out of their muscle memory pattern. If you talk to an experienced single sculler, that person has done millions of strokes, literally speaking. If that person has been rowing for a couple of years, more intensely, that person will have done millions of strokes in their life. So you have to get them out of that because they are conditioned to always start with the right hand ahead. So what I like to do as a coach is I let them hold the oar handles in a way they're not used to hold them. So I let them have the cross grip. So I hold my left oar with the right hand and my right oar with the left hand, and I roll like this. It feels goofy, but most people have staggeringly precise force curves all of a sudden. And then they say, oh, do I have to row this way all the time? I said, no, you have to sense what's going on. That's what I want you to do. And now you feel, because it's a new motion, you wait for the response of the boat. You wait for the response of the resistance. That's something you should be doing in a boat anyway. So if you're a coach and you would like to teach your athletes precision at the catch, this is one important way to do this. Now, let's look at the force curves a bit more. Once you have established this, the second thing that most people then figure out at the catch is if they cannot control their hands vertically. That means they have a tendency to go very high with their hands at the beginning of the drive or with the blade way too deep. That means they take away from the horizontal resistance and add vertical motion to it. And the BIOROWER shows this perfectly well. Look at me now doing a couple of strokes with perfectly straight hands. You see the curve is flat. And now let me wiggle up and down with my hands during the drive. You see, there's a correlation. Why? Because every time my hand goes up, you see the force is reduced. Why? Because I reduce the amount of horizontal pressure because I move up. So the BIOROWER shows you when your hands are not vertically stabilized. And a lot of people have a tendency to catch this way. They will be at the catch this way, they will go up, and they have these yank-like build-ups. For some people, I'm not good at faking this anymore, but for some people, it even looks like this. It looks like stairs. They will report to you that the BIOROWER doesn't seem to offer immediate resistance at the catch. Often at demos we get, oh, there's a play at the catch. Then I tell them, where's the play? This is built like a Swiss watch. There's no play. There's less play than in a boat. So how come you feel play? And then I explain, look, your hands are not stable. I say, no, what do you mean my hands are stable? I've been rowing for 150,000 years. I say, okay, now please try to wiggle up and down with your hands. What do you see? Oh, there's curves and I feel something. Exactly. And this is what's going on at the catch. So you have to learn A, to be symmetrical left and right, and B, to have your hands vertically stabilized as soon as possible. And if you do this, you're extremely quick at the catch because there's no waste of energy. These two things alone will help you to teach your athletes how to become more precise without much talking. Of course, at the beginning, you need to explain how the system works. But eventually, they will start the trial and error process of becoming more effective. So they will go from curves that look like this. See, the red curve starts ahead of the left one, to curves that are more symmetrical. And they will move from curves that look a bit like this, because the hands wobble up and down at the catch, to curves that are more precise. It's a coach once called this a Game Boy for rowers, and it really is. There's a lot of learning without you as a coach having to talk a lot. Now stay tuned. In the next episode, I'm going to explain how to work with force curves on the BIOROWER, the most effective way without going in too many details, but basics. How do you shape a rowing team that is unified? So you have a pool of ideally interchangeable athletes because they have the same handwriting. Now, thank you very much for watching. If you're interested in this beauty, it's a BIOROWER Pro. It's the world's best rowing machine by far. And I haven't even set this to be unstable, which is possible. And you can connect this to a double or a quad, to a pair, a 4 or an 8. Go to biorower.com or talk to your local dealership. I'm looking forward to meet you in person and to deliver your BIOROWER Pro. Until then, have a very good day. Thanks for watching.